Good morning, UC Bearcat fans. It's time for UC Bearcats on the Prowl, part of the Grueling Truth Radio Network. As always, it's hosted by Mark Fightmaster and myself, James Ernest. Mark, what have those Bearcats been up to?
Well, James, they held serve against East Carolina in football, won the game pretty handily, and are headed to the AAC Championship game again this Saturday, I believe, at Nippert at 4 o'clock versus Houston. Could be a good game, a bit of a challenge, which might be needed because in the latest college football poll, the Bearcats checked in at 4 again, with a little bit of movement above them. Michigan's 2 after they beat Ohio State, and then Alabama is 3 still. So kind of a flip-flop there. But, I think they're positioned well, James. Again, win, and you're pretty much in.
Definitely. It just seems weird how they flipped the 2 as opposed to putting Michigan at 4 and then Alabama at 2 and us at 3.
Yeah, the only thing I can guess, James, is we saw it all along with Oregon until they lost to Utah. They considered Ohio State a real high-quality win. And the way Michigan took it to Ohio State, I can see them. I figure that's probably why they put them at 2. Again, it's all a dog and pony show until next week when the final rankings come out. But you kind of have to. The only thing I worry about is Oklahoma State now, James. What they play. Don't they play Baylor in their championship game?
They do. They play Baylor, and Baylor's number 9. They're number 5.
Yeah. And so that's where I worry, because, if Oklahoma goes out and just kills Baylor and UC isn't that great against Houston, what do they do? It would be horrible to think that a team from the conference that UC is going to be going to with 1 loss is going to sneak in over them because of a quality win at the end of the season. But again, you and I aren't paid the big bucks to make those decisions, but we have all season long preached patience and trust the process. I think we need to do that here.
Or I got an even better one. No, never mind. They're not playing because they're not in a real conference, so we're good there. No, we don't have to worry about that. Yeah,
gotcha.
Because I was going to say the team that their head coach is leaving them.
Oh God, dude. Yeah. Let's
in the middle of the night.
Yeah, sound familiar?
Yeah, that does sound familiar.
It was kind of funny to see Tony Pike put his thoughts up on Twitter, talking about, wow, this all seems very familiar, But, gosh, and I guess we're going to have to address the elephant in the room at some point in time during this podcast, so it might as well be now. Luke Fickell has been tied to every open coaching job in the country, probably some high schools too, who knows. But, he was asked today about Notre Dame. And, there's a couple things to take away from his answer, James. The first thing he said was that he doesn't pay attention to all the other stuff. He's worried about Saturday's game and the kids in the room. That's kind of a no. No, I'm not interested. But he was specifically asked about Notre Dame, and he kind of played it off almost like, oh, there's news with them. I haven't heard anything. Yeah. And to tell you the truth, while it was kind of a no, it also kind of made me feel a little bit uncomfortable, because he has come out and said in the past, no, I'm not going. No, I'm not going. Now, is this a ploy for him to get a little money out of UC? Quite possibly. But I did see, some people, some of the talking heads who supposedly know more than you and me, talking about how Notre Dame's going to make a big push because Luke Fickell is a Catholic guy. He is a Midwestern guy, and they want to get back to recruiting the Midwest the way they used to. And he's got his fingers on the pulse of the Midwest as far as recruiting goes. You saw what he did for Ohio State. You saw what he's done at UC. So there's some reason to believe that, Notre Dame's probably going to throw a big bunch of money at him to see. So, I guess we'll be tested here.
So the interesting thing is, I've heard rumors of a trade, and you're like, you don't trade coaches in college sports. That's not how things work. You can't trade. Okay,
Right.
so basically, Notre Dame went down to LSU. Notre Dame's assistant, or Fickle, goes up to Notre Dame. Then their assistant coach, the coordinator we had, is going to come back here to us.
Yeah, Marcus Freeman is an intriguing name in all of this, James. And again, we're putting the cart before the horse, looking at potential replacements for Fickle, but you never know. And I think it's good to do that in this case. And I think you're right. Marcus Freeman would be very good. Now there is some support for him at Notre Dame even. Notre Dame would like to maybe lock him up, but I just don't know that you can use a transitional style coach there. And I would think that a first-year head coach is nothing more than transitional at Notre Dame. We saw what Fickle did here, defensive-minded, young head coach, with Ohio ties. And you got that with Marcus Freeman. Plus he was a defensive coordinator here. So those are, the possibilities. I think another name is another player in all of this with Marcus Freeman is Ohio State. As they showed in their game on Saturday, they need a defensive identity. They have no defense. They don't have no defense, but they have no defensive identity. They couldn't stop the run. They got crushed up the middle. Does Ohio State throw a ton of money at him to get him to come back to be a defensive coordinator even? But I can't imagine taking a defensive coordinator job over, at Ohio State over the head coaching job here at Cincinnati, but who knows?
Exactly. Yeah, I agree with you. If the opportunity to be a head coach comes up, I've heard interviews with him where he has said he wants to be a head coach.
And James, he should be. He has put together some seriously solid defenses between UC and Notre Dame. He learned, up in Columbus. He learned in different places. He is going to be a very good head coach. The kind, quite honestly, that UC, if given the opportunity, should tie up, should snag. Because maybe then he doesn't look at UC as a transitional position. Especially with going into the Big 12. So that's just an intriguing name out there, and it's this is kind of a good problem to have for us that our coach is so in demand that for for every single open position that comes up, he's named. We saw USC. Okay, goodbye, Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma. He's gone over to USC. The Oklahoma job is there. But nothing has been said about Fickle at Oklahoma, which is why I worry a little bit about these rumors, James, because they knew better than to throw Fickle's name in there at Oklahoma. Fickle's name wasn't really thrown in there to LSU, But, man, you can't open Yahoo, Google, CBS Sports, any of those without seeing an article about Fickle and Notre Dame. And that is what concerns me.
It just seems weird that USC needed a new coach. I mean, they're in their championship game.
Right. But I guess they wanted to lock him up, get somebody good, and get some new blood. And Lincoln Riley's a hell of a football coach.
Oh yeah, he's phenomenal.
He's done a great job at Oklahoma. And you watch Oklahoma, this has got to be killing the SEC because Oklahoma just lost their big name coach, and the two quarterbacks have entered the transfer portal at least, I think. And some other players have too, so that team's going to get picked over through the transfer portal. And so here's the SEC saying, oh, look, we got Oklahoma. Well, you kind of get the carcass of Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So, and in all this, James, and this goes to a bigger thing, kind of a bigger picture. The way coaches, Brian Kelly, can do two programs the way he did. UC and Notre Dame, that just rubs me the wrong way. There's like no penalty, and so okay, and I guess let's bring this back full circle. Notre Dame has said that Brian Kelly is not going to coach in the any playoff game that they have. He's done, which tonight the College Football Playoff Committee said they will take that into account when they're looking at Notre Dame. So I think they have effectively eliminated themselves from the college football playoff this year.
Yeah, I could see that.
It's just, but I don't know, man. It's just we're going to deal with a lot of what ifs right now because, quite honestly, I read another report out there that people are thinking that Notre Dame is going to jump on Fickle as fast as they can. They said, this one report I saw said they're willing to wait. They're willing to wait until January, to get Fickle. So go ahead, Luke, coach in the playoffs. We're not going to take you away from your team.
Okay, good.
That's one possibility. Now, obviously, the other possibility is they lock him up as early as they can. I mean, God forbid, what if UC loses this weekend to Houston? And they drop out of the college football playoffs.
Yeah, they would definitely drop out of the playoffs. Yeah,
that could be a sign right there to Fickle to say, okay, go. Who knows? It's gonna be really interesting. But that's long term stuff. We look at the short term. UC's got Houston ahead of them. Houston's a good football team, rated 21 in the country now. So I think it'll be a good game. I think UC comes out on top, and they're the number 4 team in the playoffs.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, Notre Dame pretty much was only going to get in if Baylor won and Iowa won and Houston won. I was going to say if all 3 of those teams won, then they had a chance, but that'd be about it.
Yeah, and there's a slim team. There are those teams that have those slim chance hopes, and Ohio State at 7, but Armageddon has to happen, and it's just not going to happen this weekend. I think Georgia. Now, the other thing is what happens to Alabama if Georgia beats them? Does Alabama drop out? And does that set up a 2-3 potential between UC and Michigan?
That would be nice.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. That'd be an interesting matchup because that defense in Michigan is something special, but Ohio State's to put up points on them, They get those edge rushers. They're just studs. But, again, cart before the horse. Let's get through this game against Houston and advance from there and see who we end up playing. Could you imagine if Alabama, Michigan, if those 2 lost, what would happen? We're looking at the possibility of a Oklahoma State, and does Ohio State, can they sneak in? I doubt it. I think Alabama probably moves down to 4. I don't know. It'd be interesting. You could see UC as high as 2.
Yeah, if those 2 both lose, Michigan and Alabama, UC goes up to 2, then Alabama would probably, they might still be even 3 or 4, and then the other one, would be
Oklahoma State.
Oklahoma State, yeah.
Yeah, because then, let's say Baylor beats Oklahoma State, then and the other 2 things happen, Michigan loses and Alabama loses, what do you do then? It's going to be, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see.
Would Iowa go up because they beat Michigan?
I just can't see them jumping from 16 all the way up to 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And again, then there's that team.
Baylor. Does Baylor go up that much then because they beat Oklahoma?
Baylor's good.
Because Ole Miss isn't going to go up that anywhere because they're not in the game. Ohio State's not in a game.
Yeah, I don't think either of those teams that aren't playing this weekend could do it. I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting. Could you imagine a tournament?
Yeah.
Could you imagine a tournament with the top 8 teams playing? How much fun that would be.
Oh, it'd be phenomenal.
Yeah. Oh, gosh, that just makes me wish that they would do it. Even the top 12, you just have to string it out a little bit longer. But good Lord, man, that would be so much fun. So, but hey, take care of business. Let's beat Houston like we know we can, and we'll go from there.
I mean, just going with, current standings, Georgia versus Ole Miss, so an SEC matchup. You got Big Ten versus Big Ten, Michigan versus Ohio State. Then Alabama versus Notre Dame, and then us versus Oklahoma State.
I mean, that would be awesome. And you know what I could see happening, James? I could honestly see the committee flipping Ohio State and Ole Miss, just so you miss the Big Ten matchup, Big Ten rematch, and the SEC rematch. Which would be fine. But hey, wouldn't that be fun, man? Wouldn't that be just so much fun to have a Final Four in college football? Good Lord.
Oh, it'd be amazing.
A tournament-style Final Four. We have a Final Four now, but we need a tournament style.
Exactly. We're going to get that. We'll get that in about 2025 after college football, the video game comes back, because they're going to definitely put that on there, even if it isn't a real. Like I know EA says if it's in the game, it's in the game. No, well I think they're gonna add stuff like that and let you choose. If you want a 4-team or a 12-team or a 16-team playoff.
Hey, if I run coach's career mode, can I leave in the middle of the night for another job?
Exactly. Oh, that is ridiculous.
Sorry, that's just that really bothers me, and it really makes it even worse. It's Brian Kelly again, but hey.
Of course, that's the big part that just really baffles you, because I get it when he did it the first time. Okay, they might have said, "Hey, you're either in or you're out," whatever, or just the fact that it's Notre Dame. I get that, but for them to do it a second time,
yep.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure Notre Dame was already paying him multi-millions, so it wasn't it wasn't like he was poor, and it wasn't like he went from a couple $100,000 to a couple million. He went from a couple million to a couple more million. Yeah,
it's funny. You can sit there and think, how does he sleep at night? Well, you know how he sleeps at night? He sleeps on a bunch of money.
Exactly.
Jeez.
Yep, on his nice new Tempur-Pedic mattress.
Exactly. Well, but you know what? That also brings up, I remember when we were talking about name, image, and licensing with these kids. At least now, finally, these kids have a means to get some money for themselves, because these coaches are making multi-millions and billions of dollars off of them, so.
The weird thing is I really haven't seen much with it, and I figured because of how good UC was doing, we would see Ritter, on a ton of commercials.
Yeah, I think they're kind of doing it just a little bit in the background. I don't think they're bringing a lot of attention to it. Yeah. Now, I agree. I would love to have seen Ritter in more commercials and stuff, but I think he's got some deals out there, and they just, he's making enough off it to supplement whatever he can do. So. Yeah,
because I figured, oh my gosh, with them being undefeated, and that people would be just, it'd be obnoxious at this point.
And quite honestly, I'm a little disappointed in the local businesses that haven't jumped on it, because, let's look at Ohio State, and I just bring them up because I know the situation. They have several of their starters who have a deal with one of the big car dealerships up there, maybe Reichert Ford or something, where basically they're in commercials for them, and they get a car.
Yeah.
And so we could see that with Desmond Ritter down here, but none of the Cincinnati businesses have really stepped up.
Exactly. I figured, P&G and like you said, a car dealership and Skyline or Gold Star, one of those two.
Yeah. It just makes sense, and the one that really makes sense is the car one, just because that's what all these kids want is a car,
Exactly.
And so, but it is what it is.
So, okay, so the football is going great. Unfortunately, the basketball has fallen on tough times.
Man, well, we say tough times. It's 2 losses in a row. But I think the way they lost to Monmouth. Now I'm not going to say Monmouth is a horrible program. Monmouth was 5-1 going into the game, and they're a good program. But it almost seemed like there was a little bit of a hangover from the loss against Arkansas. Maybe a hangover from Thanksgiving. Who knows what it was. They just did not – I didn't see the rebounding that I wanted to see out of them. I didn't see the intensity I wanted to see out of them. And, man, they missed free throws. And while we're used to the Huggins and Cronin teams missing free throws, I'm not used to seeing this team miss free throws at the clip they did against Monmouth. So, what we had Cove at the line with a chance to tie it with 4 seconds left, and he missed both. That was tough. That was tough. But – James, young team, young coach, got to learn somehow, right?
Yeah, it just bugs me because it's at home. I get it, losing on the road. We lost to Arkansas. That makes sense because Arkansas is, top 12, top 15, top 10, somewhere in there. So they're phenomenal. And like you said, Monmouth is not a bad team. It's just losing to them at home. If we lost to them at a neutral site, it'd be fine. I doubt we'd go there, but if we lost to them in a neutral site, it'd be fine. But we definitely need to get back on track against Miami tomorrow night.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, Miami's a good team. Miami's coming in 5-1. This isn't going to be big brother pushing little brother around on the court. It's going to be another tough game. like the Monmouth game was. So, we're going to see a little bit of the toughness here, because then on top of that, we got Xavier looming on the horizon.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be I think this is going to be a pretty telling stretch for the team. They had a great start, man, a great start. I love the start, but then these last two games, they weren't that good. They weren't that good. So we got Miami, Ohio tomorrow night, and then on Sunday they play some team, Bryant. Not real sure where they're from, and then they've got the Crosstown Shootout. So
exactly.
The Bryant Bulldogs, they beat Fisher College 122-54.
Oh wow!
but they lost to Rhode Island, they lost to Clemson, they lost to Bethune-Cookman, and then they beat Holy Cross. So so they beat Brown and Dartmouth as well. Or no, they beat Brown, lost to Dartmouth. So, but it'll be a good test. These next three games for the Bearcats. You got the big game against Miami, Ohio tomorrow night, which I say it's a big game. UC's only favored by 2.5 points.
It just
then you got
confuses me. Yeah, because like Miami of Ohio, they beat Georgia Tech, but yet they lost by a good amount to Western Illinois University.
Yeah, this young team, I don't know, man. I don't know how to explain it away with Miami, because,
I mean, they went down to Georgia, and beat Georgia Tech. I mean, that's pretty dang good. But to lose by that much on the road to Western Illinois, it just seems, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. It looks like, if I remember correctly, James, okay, Miami is rather guard-heavy on their offense.
Yeah.
I believe it's a young man named Day Grant and another one named, it's Mecky Larry. That's their two guards, and I believe they are their top scorers. I'm not 100% certain on that. So we're going to see the guards pressed a little bit into the defensive duty, and we'll see how it goes. I like our guards. Yeah. I think our guards are great. DeJulius, Saunders, Adams Woods, Madsen, I think it's a good group. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be a good game tomorrow night. It's going to be closer than a lot of people expect.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know we're not a Miami show, but I'm going to just say their next couple of games, because I think they got a really interesting schedule coming up. Of course, they're playing UC at home. Then they're playing at Larry Bird's alma mater, Indiana State University. Then they're playing Clemson, and then Bellarmine. So, I mean, they've got an interesting couple games.
Well, they're building up a good schedule before they get into the MAC. Well, I think what Miami and OU right now have the two best records in the MAC at 5-1 apiece. So it'll be interesting for them down the line. So it's a good team. Guard driven. We'll see how our guards play against them. And then when you're playing a team that's guard driven, you got to use your bigs. And we'll see how they respond.
Well, that's a good thing. I was going to say we're 3-4 deep at our bigs, so we're pretty solid there.
Yeah, we are. And like I was saying, James, this is a pretty solid 3-game stretch for the Bearcats. They need to do well. I think they need to come out of the 2-1, 3-0, because then they've got, I think they're 3 games after Xavier against teams with losing records.
Yeah.
And then that builds to the away game at Houston.
Exactly. And games like that, Memphis, SMU, those ones are going to challenge them. Wichita State, I mean, it would be hard-pressed for them to be bad. I don't know what they are this year, but it's just, I mean, they're always a solid team.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think if I remember right, UC was kind of picked in the 5 to 6 range on a preseason for the AAC, with the likes of Houston, SMU, Memphis, Wichita State ahead of them.
Exactly.
So,
they're 5-1. Wichita State is, and the only loss that they have is in an overtime against Arizona.
Okay. Yeah, that's tough game.
I mean, they beat Missouri, they beat UNLV. I mean, they're playing Oklahoma State coming up. I mean, they've playing some tough teams. They're playing Kansas State. I mean, they've got a pretty darn good schedule.
Yeah, they're not shying away from anything, are
Exactly. So it sounds like there's some great things going on with the Bearcats. We got, of course, some big games coming up in basketball, the most important games of the season coming up in football. And the nice thing is, for those who are interested in going to the game, if there are tickets left, like online, it's showing $70 for the lowest price ticket for the UC Houston game, which compared to some of the other games out there is actually pretty good, because the Georgia-Alabama game, the cheap tickets are $324.
Man, yep. Yeah, you pay for that SEC.
The cheap Big Ten game, $285 up in Indianapolis, Lucas Oil Stadium.
Yeah. And I heard, this is just something I heard through the grapevine kind of thing. A lot of Ohio State fans had purchased the tickets before the season even started for the Big Ten Championship game and reserved a bunch of the hotel rooms. So there's a case now where Michigan fans are having to go to Ohio State fans and try and buy tickets from them. So that could be driving the price up a little bit.
Exactly. So it sounds like there's some great things going on. Any final thoughts before we let the fans go?
Nah, man. Let's enjoy this, because it's gonna be fun. With the game this weekend, and let's not worry too much about all the noise on the outside. Let's just hope the boys can do the same and focus on the game this weekend and get a big win against Houston.
Sounds like great advice. It's been James Ernest and Mark Fightmaster for UC Bearcats on the Prowl, part of the Grueling Truth Radio Network.